How's it going, everybody? C-RadTV back here in another video. So, of course, it's time for another Detroit Lions NFL draft preview for 2022. So, in the last draft preview, we took a look at the top day 2 wide receiver prospects in the 2022 NFL draft. And in this part, we're going to shift back to the defensive side of the ball and take a look at the top day 2 defensive lineman NFL draft prospects. Since there's still some pretty good defensive lineman prospects, since D-line is still a big need, especially pass rush. And so, yeah. Anyway, we're going to take a look at them and see which names the Lions should be keeping an eye on heading into the 2022 NFL Draft. But yeah, anyway, let's go. So starting off with defensive ends, the first one we're going to go over here, hailing out of South Carolina, standing 6'4", 250 and weight 259 pounds. We got Kingsley and Hogbear. So in terms of strengths, he's a versatile pass rusher, can win as both a defensive end and as an outside linebacker. He's a smart pass rusher, has a ton of moves that he layers together well, has a solid first step, and has the agility to create winning angles. He plays through contact well, won't be knocked off his path without a fight. His power to both shock blockers and shed at the point of attack is sufficient. He has good awareness to identify the ball and react to it, even when he's engaged to block with blockers. He's a solid anchor, which is viable for setting the edge. His hand quickness and his overall control stand out the most, and he has great technical prowess. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he doesn't have ideal range for coverage action. His bend and lower body flexibility, they aren't a deficiency, but he won't consistently win with it. He has average open field athlete, won't be able to make a move to an off-ball linebacker role if rushing the passer fails. He's not a natural bull rusher. He won't be the type to collapse linemen into the pocket. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Patrick Jones in the Minnesota Vikings, so definitely has a lot to offer as a pass rusher for sure. A couple things to clean up, but yeah, definitely someone to keep an eye on here for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Purdue, standing 6'4", weighing 270 pounds, we got George Karlaftis. So for George's strengths, he has excellent control and creativity with his hand usage. He has a wide variety of moves at his disposal. He shows good mastery over them. He comes out of his stance with decent juice. He has a well-built body, can hold up in the run game. He's very twitchy upper half with great hand speed. He consistently drew double teams at Purdue. And he finished strength as a tackler is there when he lands cleanly. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he has average length, which makes it harder to create winning angles. His tape looked less impressive as a junior than as a sophomore. His lower body flexibility, it isn't poor. It's not ideal for staying low around the edge. His balance fails him too often in the run game. His power has flashes. He doesn't uncork it often enough. His play speed and overall feel for the game, it has regressed. His average open field athlete won't be viable to drop into coverage. He loses track of the ball too often. And he also had some injuries in his sophomore season and some complications involving the Black Plague. So yeah, that could raise some red flags here so that's going to be some questions if he can stay healthy. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Sam Hubbard of the Cincinnati Bengals. So yeah, definitely a lot of upside for sure. A couple of health issues to keep an eye for sure for a roll at the dice. But yeah, maybe someone to keep an eye for sure if he can stay healthy. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Western Kentucky, standing 6'3", weighing 240 pounds, we got Dante Malone. So for D'Angelo's strengths, he's versatile enough to work both as a defensive end and as an outside linebacker, so he has a lot of versatility there. He's a rare athlete for the position. He has long strides which cover a ton of ground, both as a pass rusher and in an open field. He's nimble enough to slip through gaps and make himself a tiny target. He's quick to pop up if he loses balance. He raises his way back to place and won't quit prematurely. He has quality flexibility to flip around the corner against offensive tackles. And he is listed as one of those small school studs because he brings excellent bend and burst around the corner. And he's able to reliably make up for his size differential through raw athletic ability. So yeah, definitely has a lot of upside. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's walking on stilts and he may have had a hard time adding a lot of weight in his lower half. His poor play strength leads to game washed out run game. He doesn't work diligently to maintain his leverage. His hand usage is rough around the edges. His modest power won't be enough to knock back opponents in the NFL. He's not disciplined enough with his angles, both in pursuit and against blockers. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Tyus Bowser of the Baltimore Ravens. So yeah, definitely a lot of upside for sure. A couple things to keep him to clean up, and he has to be more disciplined. But yeah, definitely someone I would have on the board for sure. And the final defensive end we're going to go over in this video before we move on to the defensive tackles. We got hailing out of Ohio State, standing 6'4", weighing 255 pounds. We got Tyreke Smith. So for Tyreek's strengths, he's laterally quick, has consistent slips around blockers, strong tackle work, can drive through targets. He has good pursuit angle, can run down the ball carriers. He's a natural stand-up rusher, can get out of his stance well. His eyes are very disciplined in the run game. His flexibility allows him to attack unique angles as a pass rusher. He flashes some brilliance with hand technique. He possesses quick hands, always working to create opportunities. He's a high-effort player. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he lacks the bulk and play strength to set the edge against powerful run blockers. Too easily, he's torqued out of the way in the run game. His burst is sufficient, but it's not ideal for outracing tackles around the edge. His contact balance is a bit underwhelming. Length is average, won't give him much of an advantage. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to free agent defensive line and Sharif Miller. So yeah, definitely has a lot of upside for sure. You know, a couple things to clean up, but yeah, still someone to keep an eye on for sure. So now moving on to the defensive tackles. The first one we're going to go over here, hailing out of Alabama, standing 6'4", weighing 313 pounds. 313, very nice. We got Fletcher Mathis. So for Fletcher, he's your prototype intangibles defensive tackle. Turns their strengths up his physical presence in the middle of the defensive line. Has upper body strength and power to blast the linemen off their platform. He's a nuisance hand fighter, combines his quickness and his raw strength efficiently. Has good leverage and knee bend when he doesn't have to cover ground. He's more nimble than he looks. He's shocking all with his swipes. He's relentless with pursuit and he works until he gets free. He's going to find sacks late in plays thanks to his energy. He's a game tackler, can seek any chance to put his hands on the runner, or the ball carrier in that matter. His long arms that gives him a lot of advantages when he sheds blocks. His anchor is a major positive. He could take on double teams. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he has average foot quickness. His range of movement likely will keep him working in a phone booth. His feel for his surroundings as a run defender fluctuates too often. There are times where he can get lost if he gets turned off his angles in run games, so he's got to learn to stay turned on and keep an eye on the ball carrier. He's sluggish out of the gate. He lacks ideal burst, though, so he's got to learn to get faster right off the line. And his bull rush is a bit untapped at the moment, but it could get there. May take some seasoning. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Derek Brown of the Carolina Panthers. So yeah, definitely has a lot of upside for sure. A couple things to clean up. Might take a year or two before he reaches his max potential. But yeah, definitely somebody to consider for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Georgia, standing 6'3", weighing 307 pounds. We got Devonta Wyatt. So for Devonta's strengths, he's an explosive striker, can knock linemen back with initial contact. Plays with good leverage, he's light on his feet, able to make swift adjustments. His lower body strength and his ability to settle to a spot will help in the run game. He's a dynamic working side to side, allows defensive coordinators to get creative with his assignments. Has good closing speed and finishing ability in pursuit. His athleticism allows him to move around a formation without trouble. He has wheels when he gets rolling, and he has high effort too. So that's something you like to see. In terms of weaknesses, though, he rises too quickly after contact when he rushes from the outside, so he's got to learn to stay low. Doesn't have the mass and body control to hold his ground against double teams, so that could be a problem. He gets in too many brawls. Doesn't play with consistent and calculated hand usage. Has good discipline as a run defender, but it could use some improvement. And his sack production never matched his traits. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's being compared to Larry Ogunjobi at the Cincinnati Bengals. So yeah, definitely a lot of upside for sure. A couple things he's got to clean up and has to be more disciplined, but maybe someone to consider for sure. Alright, so the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Arkansas, standing 6'5", weighing 320 pounds. We got John Ridgeway. So for John, he's a prototype tackling defensive tackle, so he's very good at tackling the ball carrier. In terms of NFL, in terms of his strengths, he has physical proportions which are remarkable for an interior lineman. He has grown man strength, shows up both when he sheds blockers and when he brings down runners. He's a final player who moved SEC bodies like blocking sleds. He's capable of absorbing double teams and holds his ground well. He sheds blocks on time, a good feel for tracking the ball. He uses length efficiently and maximizes his tools well. His initial punch is a battering ram, and he has a diversity of different moves, so he's very diverse and versatile. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's a slow burn pass rusher. Isn't going to be explosive or reliant entirely on power. Has sluggish hand speed, makes it harder to counter quickly as a pass rusher. He struggles to play with consistent leverage due to his height. Tends to rise as soon as he starts adjusting, so he's got to learn to stay low when he adjusts. And his body control and overall adjustability, it's concerning a little bit. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Steve McLendon of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so definitely a lot of upside for sure. Can hold himself well. Couple things to clean up, but yeah, someone definitely to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Oklahoma, standing 6'4", weighing 300 pounds. We got Perrion Winfrey. So for Perrion, he's the prototype explosion defensive tackle, so he's very explosive off the line of scrimmage. In terms of strengths, though, he uses length to lock out against blockers and control engagement. He's disrupted the passing lanes at the line of scrimmage. Long strider, can cover a lot of ground in pursuit. He's extremely explosive out of his stance. Has quality hand quickness and violence. His leg drive and lower body power stand out the most. He's athletic and he's versatile enough to move around on the interior, so he can move anywhere on the defensive line. His tackle radius is enormous. He's physically imposing, has the style and body of an NFL defensive lineman, so there's that too. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his long and linear frame, it isn't typical for a defensive tackle. His natural leverage, it works against him. His frame could add more weight if a team wants to bulk him up a little bit more. He's a heavy leaner. His lateral agility is inconsistent snap to snap, so he's got to have some consistency there. His run game angles, they aren't disciplined, so he's got to be more disciplined there. And he hasn't developed a wide arsenal of counter moves. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Javon Kinlaw of the San Francisco 49ers, so a lot of upside for sure. A couple things he's got to clean up, but definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure. And the final defensive tackle, the final defensive lineman, the final player we're going to go over in this video, hailing out of Tennessee, standing 6'4", weighing 299 pounds, we got Matthew Butward. So for Matthew's strengths, he's quick off the snap, won't give blockers any breathing room, has natural hand combinations, he transitions easily from move to move. His wingspan's very impressive and provides a lot of room to work with his tackle radius, as his wingspan measured at 82 inches. Good God, that's a lot. Has a good ball tracker, shifts angles efficiently, makes himself a wider roadblock than his size would indicate. Explosiveness has drawn double teams at times in college. Hand usage can be frenzied at times. Has legitimate penetration ability thanks to his first step. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's stiff in the lower half, struggles to make sharp turns without getting out of control or stumbling. He's unable to redirect momentum once he commits. His linear pass rusher only succeeds going forward rather than laterally. He's unlikely to have defensive end flexibility as a pro, so he might be just limited to just defensive tackle. His power is good enough for his size, but won't be enough to knock back bigger guards in the NFL. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Hassan Ridgeway of the Philadelphia Eagles, so a lot of upside for sure. Very strong, but a couple things to clean up, but someone to keep an eye on for sure. But yeah, anyway, that'll wrap it up here for this Detroit Lions NFL draft preview. So yeah, definitely a lot of names on the defensive line to consider for like the second and third rounds of the draft. You know, because it never hurts to add an extra one, even if the Lions do draft Kayvon Thibodeau or Trayvon Walker or even Aiden Hutchinson with the second overall pick. You know, there's still some good names to look at and keep an eye on for sure. So yeah, definitely some names to definitely consider to have on the draft board for rounds 2 and 3 of the draft, since the lively defensive tackle could be still more of a need for the Lions. But yeah, anyway, that'll wrap it up here for this draft preview. That's all I gotta say, and hope everyone's a great day, and I'll see you all whatever I make next. Peace.